You're listening to another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
That's right, everybody. Welcome back to another football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns. As always, it's your guy, Bully Rye. And alongside me for all of my football shows is my good friend, Banker Bill. Bill, what's going on, bud?
What's happening, man? What's happening? Football Wednesday. Let's go.
Football Wednesday, indeed. If you're watching the show live, we are live on YouTube, on Facebook, and we are live on Instagram. So make sure, wherever it is that you're watching tonight, to leave a comment and be a part of the conversation. Again, we cannot go live on X anymore, so I'm going live on my Instagram handle. If you're watching it here live on one of the other platforms, you can see it across the bottom of the screen, Ryan Frick Comedy on Instagram. Make sure you check us out there. Bill, heads up. I'm getting messages that my internet connection is not great. So be prepared for it to drop out and you have to take over the show. It's been a while since we had to do that, right? No, like I totally recorded the cat cave earlier today and had zero issues with it. And now all of a sudden I keep getting the little like, oh, your internet is weak. And to give people like behind the scenes, my router is behind me in the other room. And so I would have to run like a 100-foot Ethernet cable, like from behind my TV all the way down. My dogs would trip over it and stuff like that. It would be a whole nightmare to try to hardwire this in. So,
and I have to tell you, I look like I'm underwater in the live stream again, unfortunately. But it's new computer, Ryan. It's a whole new computer. I have a whole new setup, whole new camera. I'm going to blame you. It's got to be your internet connection.
I think I need a new computer. Let's go ahead and get that out the way.
That is actually probably true. Yeah.
I do need a new computer, but my face looks crystal clear despite the fact that I may drop out. So
in the StreamYard, I'm like, look how beautiful that man is. I'm talking about you, but I look good as well. And I'm looking at it on Facebook right now and not so good. I'm clearly
Dylan Turner over on the Instagram chat says that he thinks that I should do the cord running across and then record my dogs tripping over it. He thinks that would be
think that would be a reel that would probably go viral if your dogs fell over the cord. That'd be
Volley Polly also in the chat saying hi from headed to Michigan. Safe travels, Volley Polly. Please pay attention to the road. Appreciate you joining us while you're on the road headed to Michigan. Hope it's a good trip to Michigan. Because a lot of the things that we have to talk about today aren't the greatest of topics, if you will. Because a lot of football took place last weekend, and a lot of not so good things happened in football. And that brings me to this week's Homer's Corner, as I am going to talk about none other than the South Carolina LSU game over the weekend. Bill, I've asked him before the show, again, a peek behind the curtain, not to chime in because I want to try to get through this and potentially make a reel out of this and see what happens. If you have been living under a rock, South Carolina and LSU played over the weekend. College Game Day was in town. Pat McAfee loved to be able to say that he loved Cox on ESPN and get away with it. He held up Sir Big Spur. It was a great, the crowd, the students showed up between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and waited to get into College Game Day over in Gamecock Park across the street from the stadium. And the atmosphere was electric. If you watched the game, the atmosphere inside the stadium was electric. It was a great time. South Carolina went up 17-0 in the first half. I believe took a 24-17 halftime lead. But unfortunately, Lenora Sellers went down with an ankle injury and returned for one series in the second half. Did not return. Ultimately, South Carolina would lose this game. I believe 36-33 was your final score. But that's not the story that I am going to be talking about in this week's Homer's Corner. Because during this game, specifically in the second half, the officiating in this game was absolutely horrendous. Now, to be fair, the officiating in the first half wasn't great, but a lot of the calls made sense. I remember in a group chat or a Facebook page that I run, I made a comment about the fact that the referees are throwing these flags so much that nobody can get into a rhythm. Come to find out, it was the same officiating crew that threw like 19 penalties in the Alabama Tulane game the week prior. But just too many flags, making the game about themselves. Some good, some bad flags in the first half. But all in all, the officials were too involved in this game. And unfortunately for the South Carolina Gamecocks, they were too involved in this game that they had a direct correlation, a direct impact on the outcome of this game. 14 points were shaved off the board, and I'm calling it shaved because I believe the officials shaved points in this game. That is how adamant that I am about how poor the officiating was. One interception return for a touchdown was called back because they called a defensive end, Kyle Kennard, for a horse collar tackle in which he grabbed the quarterback by the jersey and threw him down like he was a rag doll. And they call that horse collar tackle. If you go back and look at the replay, one can argue that they changed the rule, that it still goes into effect. I'm still adamant that he never got the horse collar. He just happened to grab the guy by the jersey, and the dude is as soft as I don't know, as soft as mud, and he threw him to the ground. Boom, pick six called back. Later in the game, South Carolina needs to continue to score to ice the game. LSU's driving with a chance to take the lead. South Carolina intercepts on the return. LSU's quarterback turns around, starts running back towards the play as the returner is coming back. Kyle Kennard, as all defensive ends, as all defensive players are taught to do after a turnover, blocks with his hand, pushes out in front of the quarterback, hits him in the left chest, and the quarterback once again goes down as a sack of potatoes. They don't call a blindside block. They call that unsportsmanlike conduct or whatever bullcrap flag they came up with. Pick six off, 100-yard pick six off the board. Put us back at the 10-yard line. We end up punting. LSU would go back and score. Another play in the second half. Backup quarterback throws a miraculous ball. Receiver makes a miraculous catch in traffic. South Carolina called for offensive pass interference. Kirk Herbstreit in the booth. I don't know where they call pass interference. They've been having a problem getting the numbers right with penalties all day. You know why they why they had a problem getting the penalties called on the right guys all day? Because they weren't looking at the guys that they were calling penalties on. Because the officials had an agenda, they had a vendetta. They wanted to make sure that they had a direct impact on the outcome of this game. South Carolina, and not to mention, there was a block punt by South Carolina in the first half that Brian Kelly had the nerve to say that he was appealing with the league, calling it an illegal play. After all this crap that LSU had go their way thanks to officiating in the second half, Brian Kelly had the nerve to say he was going to appeal this block punt. Nevertheless, Shane Beamer asked for some clarification on the league for some of these penalties, and afterwards said that we'll just have to agree to disagree. We're going to move on to the next game. I'm going to tell you right now, I probably ought to move on too. But if UCF can claim the 2017 national championship, I'm claiming last Saturday as a win. You can call us 2-1 all you want. My South Carolina Gamecocks are 3-0 with a win over LSU. 14 points were shaved off the board for no reason. You can say the flags were legitimate. You can argue the fact that South Carolina gave up a 17-point lead. Yada yada yada. No, the SEC officiating crew decided that game when they got back on the field in the second half. These officials should be investigated. I legitimately think that it is a criminal offense as to what they did. And despite the fact that LSU did not cover the spread, I would have to believe that the officials wanted to make sure that they did everything they could to make sure that LSU did cover. And despite their best efforts, they didn't. But South Carolina takes a loss at home against a top 20 LSU team. And listen, I know I sound like a huge homer for saying it, but when I got on X after this game, Dave Portnoy, Clemson fans, I saw a Texas A&M fan, fans from all over the country on social media. What does the officials have? It's okay, Bill. What did the officials have against South Carolina? I think Dave Portnoy went on and said, the officials are blatantly cheating against South Carolina in this game. Like, you may say Dave Portnoy is not the greatest authority on this subject, but if everybody around you is seeing the screw job that took place against South Carolina on Saturday, then it's not just South Carolina fans being whiny little babies and complaining about the referees costing us the game. Shame on the SEC for not acknowledging the horrendous officiating in the second half. Shame on Brian Kelly for being a sore winner when it comes to wanting to appeal a blocked punt. But kudos to South Carolina. They're probably not going to have Lenore Sellers this weekend. But I'm proud of the way that they played, despite everything that happened. We were a missed field goal away from taking that game to overtime. Like I said, UCF can claim a national championship because they went undefeated. I can claim this as a win. And even Volley Polly in the chat, Tennessee fan, I thought South Carolina got robbed. So that is my Homer's Corner. Bad news for South Carolina. Lose Lenore Sellers, lose the game to LSU. And now we're going to move on to Bill's Homer's Corner, where we have some more bad news about one of our teams. Bill, take it away with your Homer's Corner.
I apologize for the phone ringing in the middle of that, Ryan. That was the guy that's supposed to be joining our Tap Outs and Touchdowns EA Sports College Football 25 League.
Nice.
Calling me.
Oh, of course.
He gave me the wrong PSN, so I'm going to be sending that to you shortly.
That's cool. We'll get it taken care of after the show.
We'll get it taken care of. And I have donned the EA Sports hat for that. No, I'm kidding. Not reason. But anyway, man, you know what? I'm a Gators fan, right? I agree with you. That was the calls that were made in that South Carolina game. But you said you went on X. I don't get on X because that is a cesspool of humanity. But the people that are saying that it was egregious and it was pretty blatant, I think I agree with them. I watched some of the penalty calls. I didn't see the second half of that game, but I did watch some of the penalty calls, and it was awful. It was especially the last one on the quarterback, like on the interception return, and that one ends the game. It's over. It's over at that point. If you have that 100-yard pick six, it's ball game. That one was a joke. Like he showed them like all I did was push. It wasn't a hit. It wasn't a target. And to call it an unsportsmanlike conduct play where he just pushed, he didn't really even put that much force into it. They knew, just calling it an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, they knew what they were doing. There wasn't a targeting. There wasn't it wasn't a blindside block thing. They knew what they were doing. Well, how unsportsmanlike conduct is all encompassing. You were mean on that play. That's what that is. And that's all they call it. It was garbage. It's garbage. And that would have won the game for South Carolina. And I agree with you. I think it's terrible. Let's move on to my Homer's Corner. It's going to be a whole lot shorter than yours because I know how passionate you are. But of course, I want to talk about Tua Tagovailoa and how sad I am for every Dolphin fan out there in the world today. I'm part of a club. I guess I'm part of a club. I've shown up and hung out with the club one time up here in the upstate, and they are still really, really trying to get behind our backup quarterback. I am not looking forward to watching him play. But watching Tua Tagovailoa get hit with his third concussion in 2 years on Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills was gut-wrenching. And as soon as you saw him hit the ground and his arms came out and you knew he was out and you knew he had another concussion, you knew our season was basically over. That hit all at once. And I guess what it comes down to is I really hope the man's okay. Word is that Tua Tagovailoa is not going to retire. He immediately came back the next day and said, "Hey, I'm feeling much better today. I cannot wait to get back out of the field with my teammates." He has also put out a press release saying that he's not going to retire. He is talking to specialists, but the Dolphins came out yesterday and put Tua Tagovailoa on IR. So he will not be available to come back for the Dolphins until week 8. And I believe I saw something on the internet that said, a fan group of some kind said, hopefully we go 2-2 while Tua's gone. No, it was Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson's only win was against the Jets who were quarterbacked by, I believe it was Joe Flacco at the time. And I think he won 10-6, maybe was the win. It was the ugliest game ever. He was able to score 10 points with the Dolphins offense that is in place right now. So, yeah, I'm not feeling real good about this. So, for Dolphins fans all around, I know we're all very sad, and hopefully Tua makes the right choice. He comes back healthy and understands that, please, for the love of God, slide. because Tua can't seem to figure that out. He thinks he's a fullback. Anyway, that's my Homer's Corner.
Bill, before we move on from your Homer's Corner, do you think, first of all, we got some comments in the chat here. Pedro wants to know, why do our college teams suck so bad this year? And that misery loves company. Rich comes in the chat and says that they should trade for Bryce Young and send Carolina one of their wide receivers.
You know what? That would make me not a fan this year. I would probably denounce the Miami Dolphins this year if they were to trade for Bryce Young. That is a horrible idea.
Yeah,
Mac Jones. I would take Mac Jones. I've heard Mac Jones is a rumor. I would take him.
And then they mentioned a highly unlikely trade for Stanford on Pat McAfee's show, but that'd be nice. I probably mean for Stafford. I would imagine it's Matt Stafford, not Stanford. And then Volley probably said he hated to see what happened to Tua.
Yeah, I mean,
let me ask you a dumb question before we move on, because I know we got to move on. We got a lot to get to. Do you think Tua could be the first quarterback in the league to wear one of those Guardian caps over their helmets? We've seen some linemen wear them in games this year.
I think he should. Why not? They're not heavy. They're not, encumbering? Is that the word? They don't seem to be a problem for anyone that is actually wearing them. Speed wise, turning. Tua is going to move his head quickly. So is it adding a little weight? I don't know how heavy but I haven't heard that they're heavy. And if they're going to offer more padding, do they look silly? Yeah, it looks kind of funny. You remember the big head mods that used to play in the video games and stuff? Kind of looks like that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he should. He should. Everything he could do. If he could wrap his head in bubble wrap at this point, I would do it. He's got to figure out a way not to take. He's got to figure out a way not to make his brain bounce off both sides of his skull when he gets hit, and that's what keeps happening to him. So I can't have it happen.
Tua is known to be a pretty nice guy, a pretty good guy. And a lot of the NFL players that have been diagnosed with CTE after death turned pretty violent and pretty aggressive. The older they got, the more CTE sort of ate away at their brain. Yeah. And so, Chris Benoit, probably the most famous case where when he, famously, killed his wife and son and then killed himself. And they looked at his brain, and he had the brain of an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. That's how bad his brain was from taking all that damage. So, at some point, they're going to have to protect Tua from himself. And
I don't feel that. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way.
Really?
Mm-mm. It is his choice. I don't care what you're good at. Whatever you want to pick, Ryan, that you're very good at. Say I don't know if I'm very good at anything, but if you felt like it was your calling, your purpose in life to have someone else, regardless of what your problem is, whatever's happening with you, to have someone else tell you can't do it when you physically still can. Technically, he still can. He gets injured, but he still can. And the guy was born to play quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. The guy's a good quarterback when he plays. And I don't think anybody should tell him what to do. I don't.
Okay.
I just don't. We talk about we never talk about politics on the show, and obviously there's one specific thing that divides the two parties. Well, not one, but there's one very big one, and that's about your choice, your body, your choice. This is Tua's body, his choice. I feel that way about him in this situation. That's what he's. I don't think anybody should stand in his way for him to do what his dream is, regardless of what the consequences are. There are a lot of people do a lot of dangerous things. Race car drivers can get killed at any moment crashing into a wall. They don't stop doing it because of the danger of that happening. So why should Tua have to stop playing football?
That's fair. Let's move on here because we got a lot still to get to, and I don't want to take too much more time. We can debate this for an entire hour if we want to be honest. So prayers up for Tua. Hopefully he can get right, and they can find some way to prevent him from having this happen. Rich back in the chat. If you look back at the Luke Kuechly situation, Luke Kuechly retired before he could do more damage or become a coach or something. But at the quarterback, he'll still be violent.
But he chose that.
Listen,
Kuechly chose that. He knew that it was a bad idea. Not only that, but think of it this way. Luke Kuechly, his job on the field is to have a car accident every play. Right? So he knows that the likelihood of that continuing to happen is high. For Tua, although it has happened 3 times in 2 years, the reality is if Tua slides on that play, he's playing this week. So he has to always have it in the front of his mind to try to protect himself. Can it still happen? Yes. Is it likely to happen every play? No. For Kuechly, it was.
That's fair. All right, let's move on here because college football week 3 is come and gone. We are a quarter through the college football season. After week 3, we've got a bunch of undefeated teams left in college football. Bill, we had some shockers. You know, Kansas preseason was sort of a sexy pick to win the Big 12 that Kansas is in. They dropped to UNLV. Kansas now 1-2 on the season. To me, that was a big shocker. Anything stand out to you from week 3?
I just think there are some really scary teams that I think are shocking me at this point. But week 3, honestly, I want to give you credit here. The South Carolina Gamecocks surprised the heck out of me this week. I texted you during the game and I said, man, I'm really glad that we're not playing you guys this year because you have some men on your team, real dudes. I don't see that with Florida. You guys have a defense that scares the crap out of. I mean, they're good. They're good, especially that front seven. They're scary. They can get after the quarterback, and they're not bad at all. I think South Carolina surprised me. You had your preseason pick of possibly 7-8 wins as your ceiling, and I laughed at you. And then you played Old Dominion, and I was like, well, you're going to win 3, and then you beat the absolute crap out of Kentucky, and then should have beaten LSU at home. You should be undefeated right now, and I think you're probably pretty accurate where I think this team could win 7-8 games. So yeah, South Carolina surprised me.
I'm so happy you said that. Let's talk about. That makes me feel good that you come on the show and openly admit that South Carolina's good.
I was impressed by your quarterback. Sellers looked really good. I mean, learned that he came from Florence, and hey, he's a local boy, and he's doing right in South Carolina. I mean, they looked good.
Rich comes in. That freshman end is a beast. Dylan Stewart is a monster.
He really is. You have to keep him around. That guy is going to be scary.
And Lenore Sellers, before he got hurt, hit a 65-yard touchdown run at the end of the second half where he just juked one guy and hit 20 miles an hour as a quarterback. Dude's good.
Rocket Sanders looked fantastic. I mean, how many big runs did he have? He looks good. Yeah. I mean, you guys have players. The only one that really kind of stinks is Nick Harbor, and which is shocking. That's we like who? Nobody even knows he's on the field half the time.
I think we just need to put him on the outside, just let him straight down the field and hope that he gets past the defender and when Sellers gets it to him, that he catches it. That's all we got to think about, Nick. Kind of like what you do in NCAA 25 or college football 25.
Yeah, the cheat code in NCAA in college football 25 is worthless in real life, which is hilarious. There should be obviously some sort of adjustment here. His route running should be 7
or his catching shouldn't be great.
Like he falls down at the line or something like that. You know, it just
he went to catch a screen pass last weekend and he bobbled it before he caught it, and then he lost 3 yards on the play. Yeah. I'm with you. Notre Dame finally showed up. They got frustrated after losing to Northern Illinois the previous week. They beat Purdue 66-7. Just an absolute murdering. I can't remember if there's a game. It was last week when somebody put up 87 points on the board. It might have been last week. I'll tell you what. I'm glad that we don't play Tennessee this year.
Oh, there's my team.
I hate Tennessee.
Oh God, there's 2 teams, actually 2 or 3 teams in college football that I don't want to see on my schedule, and I know I have 2 of them.
Well, let's talk about it. The biggest, who's the best team in the country after week 3 in college football? I mean, there are some really good teams out here. Some good teams that have played good teams.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at last week, number 1 Georgia going to Kentucky, they won by a point.
Yeah.
That's after a week after Kentucky got slaughtered by South Carolina. So, after week 3, like you said, you had 3 teams you don't want to be on your schedule. Yep. Give me your 3 best teams in the country at this point in the season. By the way, real quick, if you're watching the show, we got some Facebook viewers, some YouTube viewers. Join the conversation with us. Leave a comment wherever it is that you're watching. We'll read them on the air. You can be part of this conversation. But Bill, give me your best 3 teams in college football this season.
I think the 3 teams that make me the most nervous. I think Texas is really good. Unfortunately, they're all SEC teams. I'm sorry, but that's the best conference in the land. They've clearly showed that they have the best teams, and 4 of the top 5 are SEC teams. So, actually, what does it make that? Wow. 6 of the top 7, Ryan, in the rankings are SEC teams. So anyway, I think Texas is terrifying. They're number 1. They jump over Georgia this week. I think they're probably the best well-rounded team I've seen. They dismantled Michigan. That was not even a close game. And obviously Georgia had its issues this week, so they're not as scary as I may have thought that they were. A lot of people thought they were. I think Tennessee is terrifying. That new quarterback, is he a sophomore? I think he's a sophomore. Ilimo Leva. I don't know how to say his names. None of those
people are still struggling with it.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. And then Ole Miss. Ole Miss looks like its offense is great this year, and I think they're scary. So. Missouri, I thought they were pretty scary. They faltered a little bit this week. Miami obviously looks pretty good so far. What's the last name?
Not Cam
Ward.
Rising.
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward,
He looks really good. They're saying he could be a quarterback that goes high in the draft this year. Oregon hasn't looked great, but they did this week against Oregon State. And then, I guess USC. I want to see what USC does when they finally hit some decent team. They played LSU. They beat them. But then LSU didn't look great against South Carolina. And South Carolina's really good. We don't know. So I want to see USC play some games.
I'll tell you, I think Texas is probably the best team in the country in my book. If you wanted my personal top 25, and maybe that's something we can do going forward, is you and I can put together our top 25 and average it out. Or maybe just the top 10. But I think I would have Texas 1. I would probably have to put Tennessee at 2, because Georgia hasn't done anything to me that really stands out. And Tennessee's running over people. Listen,
I can't do that yet.
Tennessee gets the chance to prove themselves as they go to Oklahoma this week to take on the number 15 team in the country. And I would have to say probably Ole Miss would be my number 3. Like, you already mentioned all 3 of those teams. I mentioned it preseason that I thought if there was a team from the old SEC West that had a shot to win the conference, and to win potentially win the division, I thought Ole Miss was right up there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you talked about how many teams in the top 25 or in the top 10 were SEC teams. When you look beyond that, I think Miami's the only team that would challenge anybody out of the ACC. I think they look really good. I'm not scared about Penn State. I'm not scared of Oregon. I'm not scared of Southern Cal. Depending on the health of Utah, of Cam Rising, I don't know what Utah is going to look like. And then you still got Clemson lurking. After they got blown out by Georgia, they go out and they blow out App State, and now they off a bye week they get NC State at home, who was ranked before getting blown out by Missouri. So I want to see what more from Missouri too. Like you mentioned it. They won by 6 over Boston College, and Boston College led a lot in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see more about that. Speaking of wanting to see more, we talked about our best 3 teams in the country. Of all the teams that we've talked about wanting to see more of, who would you say is probably the most overrated team in the country a quarter of the way through the season?
Most overrated team in the country. That's interesting. It's funny. I'm gonna, Ryan. Have you seen Ole Miss's schedule?
It's a gauntlet. Like everybody in the SEC is a gauntlet.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Really?
Ole Miss is the weird team in the SEC that decided that they were going to do patty cake, baker's man. It really is. Let's roll this real quick, okay? Furman, 76-0. Furman went home the next week and got beat by Charleston Southern, 24-20. So they're terrible, 76-0. Middle Tennessee State. Ooh, terrifying. 52-3. Wake Forest. Please don't play them. They're right. 40-6. You know what their next team is? They get to play
Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern. Woo! Yeah. We're going, man. These are tough games, man. These are tough games. Then they play versus Kentucky on their own field, and Kentucky's shown. Well, we don't know which Kentucky team we're going to get. The one that played Georgia, the one that played South Carolina.
They're playing at noon in Kentucky too.
South Carolina. They have to go on the road to South Carolina. That's okay. Maybe. Then they're at LSU. Maybe their toughest game of the season because of what Georgia did this week. Versus Oklahoma at home, at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Florida. That's an easy win. And home against Mississippi State. They could run the table if they can beat Georgia on their field, on their home field, and never really have to play anybody that good other than Georgia.
That's a fair point. I'll tell you who I'm looking at. I'm looking at Missouri. I mentioned him a second ago. You talk about a weak schedule.
Overrated, huh?
Murray State 51-0, Buffalo 38-0. The first time they play, if you want to call Boston College a quality opponent, they win 27-21. They get Vanderbilt this week. Vanderbilt 2-1. I'm trying to see who they lost to. Now Vanderbilt Oh, wow. You know who Vanderbilt lost to? Maybe I'm wrong here. I thought Vanderbilt was a good team. Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State last week. Not Georgia
How did
Tech.
they do that?
36-32 after beating Virginia Tech in week 1.
Vanderbilt, just when we were thinking you were out of the basement.
This
Vanderbilt.
close. You bums. I mean, when you look at Missouri's schedule, they get A&M after Vanderbilt, then UMass before going taking on Auburn and Alabama back-to-back weeks. I mean, they have a pretty favorable schedule too. If you look at it, I mean, the best teams on their schedule is Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Arkansas. So, I mean,
I don't know. I like Missouri. I thought they were. It's funny you're bringing up Missouri because obviously they hadn't gotten scored on until they played Boston College. But Boston College, we just don't know how good they really are, right? I mean, they did beat Florida State, but it sounds like everybody's going to beat Florida State. So we don't. That is a weird thing, but I love it. But that's. But we don't know. We don't know what Boston College is. So yeah, I mean, okay, I can see Missouri, but Vanderbilt, maybe that makes me laugh, Ryan, because you know what that makes me think of when they beat Georgia State after coming out to Virginia Tech. The squirrel hunter or whatever from the Water Boy. There should have been somebody going, "Oh no, we suck again!"
Oh no, we suck again. Oh, that's great. Rich back in the chat. Ohio State is overrated. SEC team would make them look like the Mountain West. That's a funny take. We got some college football to talk here when we go to podcast pick'ems, but we're 30 minutes in. We got to get to some NFL talk as NFL Week 2 has come and gone. And, man, we can talk about surprises as far as injuries, but let's just talk about teams because we got some teams that we kind of had a decent idea about and some teams that are kind of throwing up some surprises here. I will let you know that last week I told you I've got my sheet where I predicted throughout the season. In week 1, I went 14-2. I went 9-7 in week 2 for my preseason predictions.
It's not terrible.
Bill, what surprise? Give me some winners and losers from week 2 of the NFL.
Winners. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's the biggest winner in the NFL so far this season. I cannot believe that that's happening. That the fact that they were able to beat who a lot of people think are the front runner in the NFC, if not the entire NFL, to win the Super Bowl this year, or at least make the Super Bowl, and they beat them. I still can't believe that happened. Part 2, Baker Mayfield.
Oh, and they hold on. They may get Jordan Addison back this week too. He's doing this without his number 2 receiver. So I'm with you on Sam Darnold. Go back into Baker Mayfield. Sorry.
I'm just saying Baker Mayfield. To explain to me, you are a Detroit Lions fan. How the heck did that just happen? How did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go into Detroit after we sing Detroit's praises? Detroit's going to go 15-2. They're amazing. And they lose to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on their field.
Why do you think I'm wearing Carolina stuff instead of Lion stuff after a loss? I mean, listen.
I'm still wearing the loser team. Look.
Oh, yeah. Listen, you mentioned the 2 quarterbacks you mentioned, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. You know where those 2 quarterbacks were given a shot to start and failed at? The Carolina Panthers. They're both former Panthers quarterbacks that have now beaten San Francisco and Detroit in the same week. It's hilarious. I'm right there with you, man. Like Baker Mayfield, they won.
Makes you want to hide in the cat cave.
And they won.
Hide in the cat cave. Get away.
Oh, you need to watch the cat cave this week because it's a fun listen. You talk about surprises. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints because Rich actually got in the chat.
That's what I was
and
thinking.
asked if the Saints were legit or just lucky. Listen, they played Carolina week 1. They put up 47 points. You're like, well, it's the Panthers. They played Dallas in week 2. They put up 44. They gave up 19 points to Dallas. Listen, the last 2 years, I've picked the Saints to win the division. I've got them going 9-8 this year to winning the division. But I think the Saints are better than everybody expected them to be. Derek Carr is playing like the quarterback he was drafted to be at the Raiders. Derek Carr is playing at the level that he was playing at when he was on par to get the MVP, and he got hurt and it derailed his career. He is back on that level with the New Orleans Saints. I think the New Orleans Saints are legit. He also mentions that Carolina is done. Tepper needs to go. If you ever listen to the Cat Cave, you know that
you're a huge fan.
I take every opportunity to call David Tepper the worst owner in sports. Volley Polly says he'd like his Barry Sanders jersey if I'm not going to wear it. Dude, it's right there. I can go grab it if you want me to. It's here. I almost wore it tonight, and I was like, you know what? I'm wearing the same gear that we wore on Saturday when we got screwed over in protest of the officiating from Saturday. But that was Homer's Corner. Yeah, I think New Orleans is legit. I think the Arizona Cardinals have got me raising some eyebrows. I mean, they blew out the Rams this week. 41 points. I know they're 1-1, but we were talking on the Cat Cave about the fact that, like, anytime Bryce Young has to throw the ball, he's on his tiptoes. Kyler Murray looks like the little brother who's trying to play with all his big brothers out in the backyard, but he's making it work. Like, I think Arizona might be the surprise team out west this year.
Well, you remember talk about week 1 they played Buffalo, Ryan. So you're saying that they're 1-1, but the team that they played was pretty darn good.
Yes, and in all honesty, they probably should have beaten the Bills. We talked about that last week.
Yeah,
Arizona's got a squad. Rich, appreciate you coming in. Watch the rest of the show tomorrow. We'll be around, and it'll be on Spotify too, wherever you want to listen. But appreciate you being in the chat and being active with us. Yeah, I think Arizona might be one of those sneaky teams that nobody was talking about because of how bad they were last year with Kyler Murray coming off the ACL injury. But let's get into, matter of fact, you know what, let's skip over that. Let's come back to the injury stuff. Since we're talking about surprise teams and whatnot, there's a lot of teams in the league that are 0-2. A lot of teams that are 2-0. Bill, of those teams, give me one team that you think is 0-2 that's actually a contender to make the playoffs and make a run. And give me a team that's 2-0 that you think is just a fluke and that there's no reason they should be 2-0 and that they'll fizzle out by the end of the year.
Baltimore. They're a contender.
Baltimore 0-2?
And they're 0-2.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, somehow Baltimore lost to the Las Vegas Raiders in Baltimore this week. You know why? It's all about the stash, baby. It's all about the stash. Gardner Minshew. Minshew magic, baby. Love it. So, I mean, I can't even believe it. Our buddy Eric, he's a Raiders fan. I said, how did you do that? Like, how does that happen? And he just said, just win, baby. So, shout out to Eric of course, that's what Eric would say. But I was going to make a surprise. I still think Baltimore. There's, what is it, a 6% chance if you go 0-2 that you make the playoffs? I think that's real. It's 6%.
Yeah, it's a 5% chance if you go 0-2 to make the playoffs.
I was going to make a joke about 6 this week. I heard 6.
Oh, I heard 5. So it's between. Let's call it. Between
let's argue it. 6. What percentage point?
I was going to make a joke about Eric's favorite meal, late night video game meal. But I'm not going to. All right, so that's your 0-2 team that you think is a contender. Give me who is 2-0 that you think is a fluke and then a pretender.
I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably a fluke.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, I think their opponents, obviously they beat the Broncos this week. I don't think the Broncos are going to be a great team. They did beat the Falcons week 1. And the Falcons gave us a surprise this week and went in to beat the Eagles on Monday Night Football in Philadelphia. Okay, but they are who we thought they were. We thought the Falcons would be a pretty decent team with Kirk Cousins. They did not play well week 1. They were terrible offensively. And that's what Pittsburgh's good at. They're good at playing defense. Obviously, they held the Broncos to 6 points, won the game on a late interception that Bo Nix decided to throw the wrong team. I just don't think they're going to keep it up all season. However, Ryan, with 2 wins already in the bag, are we going to be able to hang on to the winning streak, or at least the non-losing streak? We might be able to.
They might be able to go 9-8 because I'm right there with you. As far as I'll go back to my contender in a minute, but as far as pretenders, you took it out of my mouth. I thought it was going to be the Steelers too. We both predicted them to be absolutely awful this year. Giving us a pleasant surprise with 2 wins. But I still think if there's a team that has a chance to fall back, it's them, especially because the Ravens have looked, you just mentioned that you think they're contenders. The Ravens have obviously gotten off to a bad start. Talk about the Bengals. I think the Bengals are off to a bad start. They were within a point of beating the Chiefs, and a lot of people, they think there's controversy in that game. He got there early, guys. That was not passing. That was textbook pass interference. It was not a bad call. It was not the refs coming after Kansas City. It was a pass interference. Sorry. As much as I complained about the officiating in the South Carolina LSU game, that was the right call in that game. But I mean, that's gonna be my 0-2 contender, man. Like that's who I think. I think the Bengals always start off slow. Every year they start off slow. And it's no different this year. They were 1 point away from being the defending champions. So give me the Bengals as my 0-2 contender. Real quick, we got to go to the chat. Is Sean McAfee missed the beginning? How about those 2-0 Vikings?
Actually, I wanted to just talk about that too. I think that's got to be an honorable mention for a team that probably is. I mean, we talked about them being surprising, right? But I would think, is it possible that the Vikings could be contenders? Is it possible? I don't. You don't want to see it's a team that's going to fall back. Would you make the gutsy choice saying, "Hey, they're not going to finish the"? I don't know, man. They just beat the 49ers.
I don't know if I have an 0-2 contender outside of maybe, like you said, the Ravens. I'm going to throw Colts out there, but let's talk about the Vikings for a second. Because let's just say hypothetically, Minnesota is better than I expected them to be because I had them terrible this season. But let's say that they're better than I expected them to be. Let's say they make a playoff run. Let's say they make the divisional round in the playoffs. Let's just go ahead and say the Lions win the division. The Vikings make the playoffs. The Packers and Bears are out. Let's say the Vikings win in wild card weekend. They get the division round and they lose. Who's the starting quarterback in 2025 for the Minnesota Vikings?
I don't know. Is
it Sam Darnold or is it J.J. McCarthy?
I don't know. If he has a good season, if the stats are there, and some teams win, in spite of what how their quarterback plays. I mean, some teams, they actually have good records and their quarterback has an 85 passer rating, like the New York Giants. When Eli Manning was stinking up the quarterback position with an 85 passer rating, and then we get these crazy, great playoff runs where he'd win a Super Bowl and he's going to make the Hall of Fame, which is ridiculous. But he was terrible at quarterback, and they would still be good. That could happen. If that happens, I think they obviously move on. But if he actually puts up like a high 90s passer rating, decent amount of touchdowns, decent completion percentage, and it actually looks good throughout the season, I don't know, man. Like, what do you do now? Like, you didn't expect this guy to start, and he might be decent. I don't know. We don't know. That's what's so fun. We get to watch this the rest of the year and see how this plays out.
He could be this year's Gardner Minshew, like he was for the Colts last year. That's what he's aiming for.
I mean, Minshew parlayed that into a job at another team where he just went up to Baltimore and beat a team nobody expected him to beat. So it's What do you do with JJ McCarthy at that point, though? Trade him?
No, you let him sit on the bench for a while. You let him develop.
Darnold's still young. He's still only 28 or something like that.
He was a really
young draft pick.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you got to give him a couple years. Malik Willis was also drafted by the Titans to be that guy, and now he's the starter in Green Bay because Jordan Love's injury. So, you never know. Bill,
Darnold's 27, by the way. I had to look it up.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. All right, so Bill, we're gonna do this on the fly here. Do you want to talk about injuries, or do you want to go ahead and go into fantasy football? Because if we go into fantasy football, I do want to make one comment about the Panthers. But do you want to talk about injuries at all? Like, we can go like a minute or two.
I think I went on my super unhappy injury situation. I hate injuries, man. I say it every week when I'm watching football. I hate watching the opposing team get injured. I can't watch it sucks. I hate injuries. What are you going to do? It's a state of football. Here's one thing I want to say, Ryan. I think starting players in the NFL need to start playing freaking preseason games.
Yep.
That's the problem. These guys go from 0 to 100 in week one, and acting like they don't need to be in preseason games to condition their bodies and take these hits is BS. That's the only difference between then and now. It's not like the game's getting that much faster from 6 years ago till now. It's the fact that we got rid of a preseason game and they're not playing any of the preseason games. And now these guys are getting banged all over the place. I think they need to start playing again.
I'm going to clip that. Guys are getting banged all over the place. So Pat McAfee put a list up of notable injuries thus far this year, and we're not going to go over them. But in the first 2 weeks, 20 players in positions that were drafted pretty high in fantasy football teams have been hurt to the point where they're either missing time or they've been put on IR. Names like Jordan Love, Jordan Addison, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, who said he's going to be fine this week. You talked about Tua earlier. Joe Mixon suffered an ankle injury this week. A lot of guys getting hurt. And I think, to your point, Bill, you're absolutely right. I don't think I need to button it with anything else. I think The reason why they're getting hurt is because they're not conditioned properly going into week 1, and they go 0 to 100, and they're not ready for it. So that's NFL week 2. Let's go ahead because we only have about 15 minutes left in the show. Let's talk some fantasy football buys and sells and factor crap. Last week, Banker Bill and I both went 4-4 on bullies, buys, and sells. Bill got 4 right as far as calling me out being factor crap. On the season, that means I am 1 point above Banker Bill, sitting at 9-7, Bill at 8-8. So let's go ahead and get into the buys and sells. And I did not check the projections before the show, so these projections were pulled on Tuesday. And let's start off at quarterback. And we talked about him. We talked about his team. My quarterback buy this week is Derek Carr. He's projected 21.5 points. He's home against the Eagles Sunday at 1 o'clock. Listen, 40 plus points on the board both weeks. The Eagles defense, the Eagles are in shambles right now. They don't know how to put it together. They fell off the cliff last season, and they're still trying to recover. They lose to Kirk Cousins led Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Cousins didn't put up great numbers, but he put up big enough numbers to win. And I think at this point, Derek Carr is still healthier. Cousins is still recovering from the ACL or the Achilles, whatever he had last year. I love Derek Carr this week. Bill, is that factor crap that he's going to exceed that 21.5 points?
I'm going to go with a fact on this one, Ryan. In fact, it's projected for more in the league than I'm in. But like you said, Philadelphia, not a good pass defense again this season. And Derek Carr's on fire. I mean, he's on fire. That's terrifying what he's doing right now. Las Vegas Raiders fans do not want to see it.
No, they also don't want to see my running back buy that I have on my buys this week. It's because it's Derek Carr's former teammate, Green Bay Packers running back Josh Jacobs. He's projected 16.2 points at the Tennessee Titans Sunday afternoon. I gave Josh Jacobs the buy because, it's week 2 without Jordan Love. They're leaning on the run game. They relied heavily on the run game this past week. And I believe Jacobs exceeded that projection last week as well. So give me all of Josh Jacobs this week. Bill, let's say you factor crap on Josh Jacobs exceeding 16.2 fantasy points.
I just read a report, Ryan, that Love might play this weekend. Yeah, he's doing better, and he might play this weekend. I don't even know how that's possible. But with that being said, I still think they'll be leaning a lot on Josh Jacobs. Tennessee not great against the run. I think that is a fact. I think you should probably play. Although he's listed as questionable, they're saying he's fine and he'll be playing well this weekend.
All right, let's go to my wide receiver. And we talked about Derek Carr. We got to talk about his number 1 deep threat in the buys and sells. And I'm buying Rashid Shaheed as I noticed the typo here as I pull it up on the screen. Fix it real quick.
Rashid. It's a good name, by the way.
Rashid Shaheed projected 13.2 points. He's again home against the Eagles this weekend. Rashid Shaheed hit long balls against Carolina and against Dallas. Dallas is supposed to have a really good really good defense against the pass. And unfortunately, it didn't help him this week as Rashid Shaheed got deep. I believe he's exceeded this projection in both games this season. So give me all of Rashid Shaheed. Even if he only gets the one long touchdown pass, that's going to put him over this projection. Bill, factor crap on Rashid Shaheed.
You know what, Ryan? I'm going to go crap on this one. I think that they try to shut him down because he doesn't. The reality is Rashid Shaheed makes all of his money on long ball. He doesn't get that many targets. I think he had 5 in each game. So it's got to be a touchdown. He's got to catch every ball that's thrown to him basically to make sure he gets over this point percent. So I'm going to say crap. I don't know. I think they try to shut him down and see what happens because he has been fantastic so far. Great name, by the way. Love that name, Rashid Shaheed. Come on.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the rankings against wide receivers that the
31st. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles are. 31st.
Well, there you go. So hopefully
it's a low-hanging fruit, Ryan. You've done it again because you're the king of the low-hanging fruit. And that's, yeah. But in this one, I'm just going to say no. No, I think that this is going to be tough for him.
All right, let's go to tight end. And this is probably a name that you don't like to see, and that's Mike Gesicki, tight end for the – why can't I say the team?
I like to see it, Ryan, because I picked him up on my fantasy team today.
There you go. Tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. He spent last year with New England after spending most of his career with the Miami Dolphins. He's only projected 7.4 points. It's probably because the almost called him that. The Washington Commanders
Don't. You'll get us sued, Ryan.
Yeah, I know. I'll get us canceled. The Washington Commanders ranked first against as far as defending the tight ends in fantasy football. But Mike Gesicki, especially with T. Higgins dealing with a hamstring injury and or a contract dispute, Mike Gesicki has stepped in as a reliable target for Joe Burrow. So despite the tough matchup on Monday Night Football, the second game in the doubleheader of Monday Night Football, I like Mike Gesicki to get over the 7.4. Bill, what say you? Factor crap.
Is there a reason we've gone doubleheader on week 3? Like, is that weird?
Talk to Roger Goodell, man.
Okay.
Maybe we can get Roger Goodell on the show.
Yeah.
Hey, Roger, why we got 2 games on Monday? That's what we got to do.
I gotta go to bed, Roger. I don't get home from work and then I gotta go to bed before your games are over.
It's not like this is a Super Bowl and we can take off Monday. It's a Tuesday,
and they're terrible matchups too. Nobody wants to watch Washington versus Cincinnati. It's dumb. Anyway,
I know. Factor crap on
that one. Interesting. Yeah. I don't think Washington's very good. It is odd. I just feel like they played teams that didn't throw the tight end very often. It feels like. Oh, wait a minute. They played the Giants. Daniel Jones can't throw at all. So that's probably part of why that happened. Yeah. What is it? 7.5. It's low. It's really low.
7.4. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with fact. I'll buy Gesicki on a 7.4. I don't know if you should start him though. I feel like that's just a really low projection for a guy that did have a good week. I'm not sure he should be started.
If you've got a guy like David Njoku or Jake Ferguson,
I guess let's see what that first ranking.
Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram went down with a hamstring injury in pregame warmups last week.
Listen,
you could do worse than Mike Gesicki
at Tampa Bay, and I don't even know who the Tampa Bay tight end is. Last one I remember is OJ Howard. Who?
Cade Otton.
That's probably why he had one catch any tight end had one catch for 5 yards. The Giants had 0 catches for 0 yards. That is why the Washington Redskins are number 1, because they played 2 teams that did not throw to their tight ends. They throw to their wide receivers.
Yep, it's Cade Otton. They don't have a tight end too.
So all right, fact. Play Gesicki. Right. You know what, Ryan? I'm going to go set Gesicki in my starting lineup, and the reason I'm going to do it is because Bully Rise said so.
Well, listen, if I had him, I might start him over the guy that I'm calling out in my sells this week. But let's get to my quarterback sell first and foremost.
All right.
Let's talk about my quarterback sell. And fans may not like this, but Jalen Hurts. We talked about the team that he's playing against, the New Orleans Saints. Jalen Hurts is projected 22.9 points this week at the Saints on Sunday. New Orleans giving up the 6th fewest points to quarterbacks. Again, you could talk about the fact that they gave up 1 rushing touchdown and no passing touchdowns to Bryce Young, but they just held the Cowboys to 19 points. I know they did hit a pass on with what's his name? There's a wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb took a big pass to the house. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to do it on the road at the Saints, especially the week a short week after losing on Monday Night Football to the Falcons. I'm selling Jalen Hurts this week. Bill, what say you? Factor crap.
Wow. Jalen Hurts has averaged 23.9 points per game this season, Ryan, and he's been fairly consistent. But like you said, they're playing New Orleans. New Orleans has looked pretty decent. You know what? I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts. I drafted him the last 2 seasons on all my teams. He was like my quarterback for 2 seasons. This year, he's not. Wow. I'm going to go with wow. I think fact, Ryan. I think you're right. I don't think he eclipses.
Look at you. I had to change it on my spreadsheet because I thought
you thought I was going to say crap on that one. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to go fact on that one.
All right.
Jalen Hurts, and so do the teams that drafted him this week.
Let's go to the running back because this guy's been an utter disappointment through 2 weeks of the season. DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears projected 14.2 points.
Nobody cares about DeAndre Swift.
He had a great season in Philadelphia, and they thought that he was going to come over and alleviate some of that Caleb Williams stress. He has not done it. Matter of fact, as I'm pulling him up, he gets the Colts, who are giving up the 20th or ranked 20th against running backs, so 13th, ranked like 13th worst in the league. But in 2 weeks, DeAndre Swift has combined for 13.2 points. Combined 2 weeks for less than his projection this week. I'm selling DeAndre Swift. What say you? Factor crap under 14 points for DeAndre Swift.
It's low hanging fruit, Ryan. This is low hanging fruit again. I'm going to say fact on this one. They stink. And you know why they stink? It's because their quarterback is garbage. He's garbage, hot garbage. Put him out there. Put him out to the road. So they're not going to do anything.
All right, Bill, you're about to get you're about to get really upset with me because my wide receiver that I've sold this week is Tyreek Hill, projected 16.2 points. That may have come down. I'm looking for it now. It has not come down. They're playing at Seattle with a backup quarterback. Seattle giving up the 5th fewest points to opposing wide receivers this year, despite the fact that he scored 26 points in week 1 against Jacksonville. He only had 3 catches for 24 yards. I believe he had a one rush for 12 yards last week against Buffalo, but no Tua, man. You said it yourself. You don't have faith in your backup. Buy or sell Tyreek Hill under 16.2 fantasy points this week.
Fact. I have no analysis on that one.
Fair enough. All right. This one's going to hurt me because I'm selling Sam Laporta this week. He's projected 11.2 fantasy points. He's playing the Cardinals at home this weekend. The Cardinals rank 5th against opposing tight ends. Sam Laporta combined for 11.8 points on the season, 0.1 points more than his current projection. Had 2 catches for 13 yards against the Buccaneers last week after 4 catches for 45 against the Rams in week 1. I hate the fact that I was so big on Sam Laporta. I got him in the last round of a draft because of the way that we keep keepers in that league. Bill, what say you? Factor crap. I guess Philly fans are booing me because of the Jalen Hurts pick. Factor crap under 11 points for Sam Laporta this week.
You know what? I don't. He's not been good, unfortunately.
The Lions' offense hasn't been good.
He was fantastic last year, and he's not. Yeah, thank you. I drafted Jahmyr Gibbs very high in my league. Actually, my first overall pick.
Well, Gibbs and Montgomery have been great. Everybody else is Jamison Williams. Yeah, never mind. Ignore what I just said.
Yeah, Gibbs has been. Yeah. No, I'm going to go fact on this one. I think fact on this one. Freaking the Arizona Cardinals have only given up 3 catches to tight ends all season. 3.
I can't believe that you agree with me on 7 of the 8.
Dude, you low hanging fruited this one.
Well,
actually, honestly, even when they're not low, this is a good pick. This is not low hanging fruit. Sam Laporta is not low hanging fruit, and you're selling a good tight end. I like that, and I think you're right.
All right, we're up against it. Let's go ahead. Podcast pick'ems. This is week 4, not week 3. I will fix that for anybody watching the video. Podcast pick'ems week 4. Just to give you a heads up, last week did not go well for Bill or myself. Bill went 1-4 in picks. I went 2-3, and so on the season that puts us both at 7-8. So maybe we aren't the greatest to talk about picks against the spread, but we're going to do it anyway because it's my show and I do what I want. It's Bill's show and he does what he wants. So we're going to keep picking games. And this week, we got 3 college football games that we're going to be picking against because we got ranked matchups in college football, multiple for the first time all season. And let's start off with Southern Cal, the number 11 team in the country, going on the road. A 5.5 point favorite. Some of these lines changed since yesterday. 5.5 point favorite at number 18 Michigan. This is a Saturday. Now, I don't know if you remember, CBS took the Big Ten since they lost the SEC to ESPN. So this is a 3:30 kickoff on CBS between Michigan and Southern Cal at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Bill, who you got? Southern Cal 5.5 road favorite against Michigan.
Can you really take Southern Cal giving up points at Michigan? Can you do that? Can you do it?
Well, you tell me. You're the one making the pick. I'm taking Michigan. I'll let you know. I'm taking Michigan.
That's where I'm feeling it too. That's what I said. I don't think you can do it, but I mean, Texas made Michigan look bad. Like on offense, they were bad. And Southern Cal, they don't play good defense. I really like their quarterback. I think they could score. I mean, I got to go with Michigan. Laying 5.5. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot on the road.
On the road. All right, next up, the next ranked matchup. Number 12, Utah, a 2-point road favorite. At number 14, Oklahoma State. Again, I don't know if Cam Rising played last week. I'll be honest, I didn't see the game. But it all depends on the health of Cam Rising. Saturday, 4 o'clock kickoff on Fox over at Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Bill, what say you? Oklahoma State, 2-point home underdog to Utah.
You know what? I said that Oklahoma State was going to win the Big 12. And this is where they must do it. Against this team this weekend, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, listen, I was gonna be fun. I was gonna be funny and take Utah, and I've decided against it. Give me Oklahoma State as well. Even if they don't, I don't see them losing this game at home. I also don't see them losing it by like a field goal. If anything, it might be like a 1-point game. Give me Oklahoma State. Speaking of Oklahoma, we talked about this game earlier on the show too. Number 6 Tennessee, a 7-point road favorite as well. All three of these games are road favorites. This time, Tennessee, the number 6 team in the country, traveling to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the number 15 Oklahoma Sooners. This is the feature game, 7:30 ABC kickoff, Gaylord Family Stadium, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, I should say. Bill, we talked about earlier in the show. I think Tennessee is just too good. Give me the Volunteers here on the road to cover the 7-point spread. I think they could win by 14 or 20, 2 or 3 scores in this game, to be honest. What say you, Tennessee road dogs or road favorites at Oklahoma?
Man, Tennessee has slapped some teams around, but Oklahoma, number 15 team in the country. The point is, Oklahoma hasn't showed that us yet that they're worthy of the 15th ranking in the country. They played Tulane last week, beat them by 15. They played Houston the week before and beat them by 4. It makes no freaking sense. I think Tennessee comes in and beats Oklahoma down on their field, and that will feel good. You know why? You don't belong in the SEC.
Yeah, welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma, for sure. All right, we got 2 NFL games to pick. Let's start off. We talked about the 0-2 contenders. The Baltimore Ravens, despite being 0-2, are a 1-point road favorite. Again, another road favorite that we took this week at the Dallas Cowboys, a team that got absolutely demolished by the New Orleans Saints in week 2. Sunday, 4:25 kickoff on Fox. Give me the Ravens to, and this is basically a pick 'em. Give me the Ravens to beat the Cowboys on the road. I think the Cowboys are still going to be hungover from that loss against the Saints, and the Ravens are going to be angry from that loss against the Raiders, the last second field goal. Give me the Ravens. Bill, what say you? Ravens at Cowboys.
I think the Dallas Cowboys get revenge on the Ravens for losing last week. That was a shocker. Nobody expected the Cowboys to play as poorly as they did. They played much better in Cleveland the week before, so I think we'll get the team we saw week 1 versus the Ravens. And I think the Ravens, can you believe this, Ryan, are going to start 0-3.
That's a crazy thing. Let's see real quick. Mike is in Washington. I think he's your buddy that's joining the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel
that's Mike Tackett. No, Mike's the guy. Mike Tackett is the one that he comes every week. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Oh, Mike, what's up?
I agree with his comment. I do.
Feel like I'm enjoying college football more this year. Now that we have college football 25, the game's open. Yep. Open me up to so many players I would have otherwise not known about. That's a really good take.
Who do you play with, Mike? What team are you using that now you know more about their players?
That's a good question. Put it in the comments because we're getting ready to sign off here. But no, was one of the reasons why I used to love playing college football myself, years ago, is because it introduced me to my team. So I'm right there with you.
Go one little bit farther than that, Ryan. One of the reasons that I like to use Rutgers on the college football game is because my dad is a huge Rutgers fan, and I know nothing about the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I like watching them. I'll watch them with him and things like that, but I know nothing about the team. So I like using Rutgers. So I can go back and talk to him and go, hey, man, so-and-so is really good, isn't he? And my dad's always like, yes, he's the best player. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just talking about the football game. He has no idea.
That's awesome.
I like to do that. I agree. I do the same type of thing, Mike.
Fifth game on the docket is another road favorite, as the San Francisco 49ers are a 7-point favorite on the road. Divisional matchup, NFC West at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams got blown out by other divisional opponent, Arizona Cardinals, last week. This is another Sunday, 4:25 kickoff on Fox. So I guess check your local listings because both of these games that we picked are going to be on at the same time. More than likely, we're going to get the Cowboys game because that's just what happens here because it's a sick joke that our local stations decide to play on us. Bill, who are you taking? 49ers 7-point road favorite at the LA Rams.
You know what, man? This one's crazy. Is the NFC West garbage? Or, I mean, we don't know, right? The Rams played Detroit pretty well, and then Detroit lost to Tampa Bay. San Francisco gets beat. I think San Francisco comes in here and just wipes the floor with Los Angeles. I think San Francisco's got a point to prove, and they are the better team. However, hang on a second. Half their offense is injured.
Deebo Samuel's going to be missing a few weeks.
McCaffrey's missing.
Listen, I've said it on this show that real quick. Let me check this comment real quick.
Wait a minute. With that being said, Los Angeles doesn't have their top 2 wide receivers.
In Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the battle of the injured
Why did you
offenses.
pick this game, Ryan? This is like the injury bowl. We don't know.
I mean, years ago, last year on the show, I've said it, I may have said it this season on the show, that as long as the 49ers are healthy on offense, they are the best offense in the league. But I also mentioned that they're injury prone. McCaffrey's out, Debo's out. George Kittle's one wrong step away from going out himself. So listen, I'm taking the Niners only because now I feel like I'm going to change my pick. I'm taking the Niners.
Ricky Pearsall still has a gunshot wound.
Is he coming back this week?
No,
I mean, I still
4 weeks.
Their backup running back, I can't say his name off the top of my head. He's played lights out in relief of Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
They're coming off of I wouldn't call it a bad loss, but a loss to the Vikings. I'm not going to pull the excuse that the Rams have the hangover against, from the loss against Arizona. But I still think that the Niners have it. I mean, if they win by 10, they win by 10. Real quick, Trey Davis in the chat. Comment. South Carolina has their white, garnet, and black helmets on College Football 25. Thankfully, the refs don't have LSU hats on. Boom! Thank you, Trey. Appreciate that. Bill, what say you, Niners at Rams?
Yeah, I don't think the Rams have any options offensively. Kyron Williams, that's it. I'm just going to go San Francisco.
All right.
That's a big spread, but I think Los Angeles is going to struggle to score without Puka and Kupp.
Like buys and sells fact and crap, we only disagreed on the Ravens-Cowboys game. It's the only game we disagreed on.
And you're going to be wrong again, Ryan.
Wrong again, Ryan. I love it. Bill, we've run late. We are in overtime. What would you like to say before we sign off?
Enjoy the games this weekend. Go Dolphins, I guess. I don't know.
Football. Yeah, it's. I'm
going to watch a lot this weekend. I haven't taken a weekend where I've watched a lot of football. The weather's supposed to be bad this weekend. I don't have anything planned because you and I couldn't make the South Carolina game happen. So,
you couldn't make the South Carolina game happen.
It's expensive. Come on, man.
Not if you want to sit in the upper deck.
My wife won't go up there. As soon as I said, "Oh, the cheapest tickets are $95," she said, "Okay, we'll be at home."
No, nevertheless, yeah, it's. I was going to try to cut my grass Saturday, but if the weather's going to be bad, then I'm just going to have to get a notice from my HOA because I've still got that end of summer weed that I got to cut out. So anyway, yeah, like Bill said, watch the games. Football's here. We're deep into it. A quarter of the way through the college football season. Week 3 in the NFL season. Yeah, to Volley Polly's point, no Debo, no Kupp. It'll be the
no Nacua,
no Puka Nacua,
no McCaffrey,
no Ricky Pearsall. Maybe I don't know. Anyway,
he's out. He's out. He's definitely out.
So fun games this weekend. Make sure you pay attention to them. Some good ranked teams playing. We're in the upstate of South Carolina. Clemson takes North Carolina State on. That should be a fun game to watch. So pay attention to all the football because that's what we're doing. If you want to follow the show on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, make sure you go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/topouts and touchdowns. Give it a follow. Invite your friends to follow the page. We are still shy of 1,000 followers. So please share the page with your friends. Let them know about it. Let them come and enjoy the show with us as well. On X, despite the fact that we can't go live on there anymore, at Tapouts and TDs, I'm tweeting a lot from that account. I tweeted a lot after the South Carolina LSU game from that account. So you can always come and join the conversation. Give me a follow over there because I think I have all 34 followers on X. So despite the fact that X is dying, give me a follow there. And then on YouTube, YouTube at Tapouts and Touchdowns, give it a follow. You'll always get notifications for the live videos that we do every Wednesday. And now that we're going off the air, there's 9 people watching. It's the most viewers we've had all night, and the show is ending.
While there's people here, if anybody wants to donate so that I can decorate my prison cell that I podcast in, I'd really appreciate it.
Do you have a Cash App that you want me to share in the chat? I can totally do it. And then finally, follow me on Instagram at Ryan Frick Comedy. That's where we're going live. Clemson, Josh Berry over on Instagram says Clemson will smash this weekend NC State. So yeah, give me a follow on Instagram. We'll go live on there every week. Mike Tackett, before we sign off, says I'm a Buckeye, but I've learned more about Texas and Georgia from the video game. That's awesome, dude. That's a perfect way to learn about
Georgia Tech.
He said Georgia Tech?
Yeah.
Oh, my apology. Yeah, my apology. I saw Georgia. Nobody thinks about Georgia Tech. A lot of people play with Georgia Tech online.
Oh, the Travis
college
Etienne
football
is cursing that team this year. Yes.
He has. All right, guys. Listen, thank you all for joining. Thanks everybody who was a part of the conversation. There's too many to call out. But yeah, again, make sure you follow the socials. I've talked to PJ Steven. We are supposed to be recording some content this weekend, talking some pro wrestling. I'm gonna try to get Michael Davis on the show so we can finally have a pro wrestling show. Because right now, this show might as well just be called Touchdowns because we have not had any tap out shows recently. And then next week we'll be back talking more college and more pro football live Wednesday night. Hopefully you got to catch the pre-recorded episode last week. Because every now and then we'll do it, we'll put it up, and you can still join the conversation. And better yet, when the show goes live, we can get in the comments with you. So make sure, even if it's a pre-recorded episode, you come and enjoy the show as well. Thanks everybody for staying on a little late. Enjoy your football this weekend, and thanks for being here. For Baker Bill, it's your guy Bully Rye, and we'll see you next time right here on Tap Outs and Touchdowns.